Hello. So up till now we have prepared our Photoshop image for painting. We downloaded and installed John's brush, and we have downloaded the reference image, we cropped it and sized it to the correct proportions, and now we are ready to start painting in Photoshop. If you need any of the resources, please see the description below the video, and you will find the download links and look at the previous tutorials to see how to set everything up. Let's hop into Photoshop now. So in Photoshop, I have a reference image open. I have two layers. One is the reference image itself, and the other one is the background. In my case, the background is just gray. You can use white or black, whatever you want. I like gray because it's neutral. And now we're going to create a third layer on top of that. So create an empty layer and call it Outlines. Now go back to the original image layer and reduce the opacity down to something like 50 or 40%. I reduced mine to 40%. Now click back on the outlines layer and select John's square oil brush and choose a black color. What we're gonna do is block out the shapes of the mountains and the features of the painting with outlines. We're not actually going to use these outlines in our painting because when you see things in real life, people and mountains and things, they don't have outlines around them. This style is common in cartoons, but when you're doing a painting, things don't have hard outlines. You tend to blend things together, blend colors, and so we're going to try to do more of that realistic feel like an oil painting. But if you want to, you can certainly keep the outlines and use them in your painting as well. Okay, if you're a good artist, you probably don't need to use the original image underneath. You can just look at it on your side monitor and practice creating the outlines by eye, practice proper proportions, but since this is a beginner's course, we're gonna more or less trace out the important outlines from the image underneath. As you get better, try to use your eye more and your skill to create the outlines, because you will get better at it over time. But now let's just use the image and start painting some outlines. Now make sure you're on your outlines layer and reduce the brush size to something smaller and start laying out the outlines of the mountains behind. So this is a prominent mountain on the right side, and you see my outline doesn't really follow it exactly. It's okay, it doesn't need to. This is just to get the layout of the image. And this is a cliff or a hillside over here. In the foreground, we have this kind of like round hill on which we see a lot of these houses. So I'm going to just make a round shape up there and follow it all the way down into the valley below. I'm going to put a little bit of detail here, not too much. There's like a ramp with a road that goes up it. So I just want to indicate where that is, because I might want to have it in my painting. If you want in your painting, you can do something else there instead. Instead of a monastery, you can paint like a castle. But I'm just going to kind of block in roughly where these houses are. And as I said, you're not going to see the outlines in your final image. This is just a guideline. So it doesn't really matter if you mess it up or are not very precise. So I'm just kind of blocking in where the houses are to give me a rough idea. Because we are not trying to replicate the exact image. If you want that, you can just take a photograph. We are trying to get a feeling of the image, what it feels like and what the colors are and so on. So I'm just laying down the important aspects of the image here. So not every single house is necessary. Actually, you don't even need to do any of them. But let's take a look at the other aspects of the image. Okay, there's a valley here. That's quite distinct. I messed up there, but that's okay. That's just an outline. And there's like a glacier or something like that. And you see how these lines lead really nicely right towards the focal point, which is our monastery, or you could make it a castle. Even from these mountains, there are these lines which lead right down into the focal point of the image. Choosing a good reference image definitely is important. So we can trace out the contours of the mountains too. And just like Bob Ross says, don't worry about accidents. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Have a lot of happy little accidents, because you're gonna make the painting your own. And that's what we're gonna do. We're not copying exactly what the photo is. We are making it our own landscape. Okay, so I'm almost done with the outlines. Maybe there's one more here, internal outline. And look at all these lines leading right down into the monastery. That's beautiful. Okay, did I miss any? There's a cliff or a hillside over here in the foreground. And I'm also gonna do outlines around the rough shapes of the clouds in here too, just to give me an idea where the clouds are. Okay, so just really rough. Of course, you could create a completely different sky if you wanted to. But to me, this sky looks pretty awesome, so I'm gonna try to replicate it as best as I can. Okay, so now I'm ready to check out my outlines. So I will hide my original layer. And this is what my outlines look like. And that's enough for me to know where to start painting. Okay, I'll turn my original image back on, and this time I'm gonna turn off my outlines layer, because we're gonna lay down some colors. We're gonna sample the image for some colors and put them up in their appropriate layers. So we're gonna have to create some more layers. But firstly, click on the original image and bring the opacity back up to 100%, so the colors are nice and bright. And then let's create maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 more layers, okay? So, and for organization's sake, I'm gonna rename them. The background layer I'll call sky, and it's gonna be the blue of the sky. Above that I'll put clouds. I don't want to mix the clouds with the sky too much, so I'm putting them on a separate layer. Above that I'll put mountains, and that's our background, mountains and the valley. And above that I'll put monastery, and that's going to be our foreground. So what you need to do now is, into each layer, put in some of its colors that you see in the image. So I'll click on the sky layer, and with the brush that I provided you, make sure to click the sample all layers button, because we're gonna sample from the original layer, which is below. And I'm gonna use my shortcut key. You can use the Alt key and grab some of the sky. There's a deep blue at the top, so I'll grab that. I'll increase my brush size, and I'll just put some of that blue up there. You cannot see it because it's similar to the blue on the original layer, but if I turn off the original layer, you can see I put some blue up there. Let's put in some of that lighter blue as well. So I'll reduce my brush size a little bit. So I'll put some of the lighter blue there. It's mixed in with some white from the clouds, but that's okay. If you don't want to mix it with the other colors, just bring, let's see, wetness down to 0. So now, and also in the inkwell, select load solid colors only. Okay, so now if you sample that blue and you paint, there's only gonna be that solid color. I'll show you by removing the original layer. You see, this is now solid blue color. Okay, and there's also a really light baby blue in some little parts of the background sky close to the horizon. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of that there too. And maybe some medium blue up between those two colors. But you don't have to worry about grabbing every single color, because we're gonna be mixing it when we paint. So this is what I have on the sky layer. Now let's go to the clouds layer and sample some of the colors in the clouds. There's like almost pure white in some of the clouds. The pure white is near where the light strikes it. There's some grays, like medium gray. There's some dark grays, even really dark gray over here. And just kind of paint over it a little bit. Make sure you are on the clouds layer, not on the sky layer. Sometimes you make that mistake and like, oh no, I'm on the wrong layer. It happened to me before. So I'm just trying to get some of the different grays, but you don't have to worry about all of them, because this is just to create a color palette. So this is what we have when I turn off the original layer, so different grays. Now click on the mountains layer. Now remember, the mountains layer are the background mountains and the valley. Don't do the foreground, which is the slope on the right side and the monastery. We're going to do that on the monastery layer. So for the mountains, there's a lot of different colors. I'll start in the right here and get the orange, different shades of orange on the rocks. Don't worry if you cover up the details. We're not creating a detail painting. We're covering up the details. We're creating the feeling, not the details. If you want the details, you can do a photograph, or you can add as many details as you want later. But right now, just the colors, the basic colors, that's all. So I'm basically grabbing a color and making a smudge in the approximate section. Here are some nice oranges and some of these dark blues. The distant mountains are more faded. And yeah, just go around and do this. There's gonna be a lot of colors here, so just do the ones that you can grab. Sometimes it grabs a color which you weren't expecting. So there's a white here. There we go. That's okay. Remember, happy accidents. The image doesn't have to be exactly as the picture. This is some dark, deep blue in the shadow. Okay, so I'm not gonna go through all of them. I'm gonna do some more when between videos, but just to give you an idea. So here are some light whites and some green of the glacier. The glacier had some different hues and shades in it. It has almost white and then some greens in it. And if you don't get all of them, that's okay. You can grab some later on from your original image, which you will still have in your layer stack. But this should give you enough colors to start with. Some in the valley down here. These darks. Okay, so we got a little bit of everything, I guess. Now, do the same on the monastery layer. Now on the monastery layer, I'm not gonna paint the windows of these houses. That's not important to me. I'm just gonna block in their shapes. You can go into great detail and reduce your brush size to like really tiny, but that's not what I want to do in my painting. I just want to indicate the buildings and let the viewer's imagination fill in the details. Also, not all white colors are the same white. Some of them are a little bit darker, so do sample once in a while, because a white on one building is not always the same as on another one. Same for all colors. There's no one color there. There are many colors of each hue. I'm gonna also sample this ramp and the road, reduce my brush size, and just drop some of those colors over there. Orangish, reddish, and the vegetation is quite dark green, almost black. So I'm kind of just dropping the colors where they belong and not worrying about it too much. Now this slope here becomes almost white near the bottom where the light hits it the most. Okay, and lastly, the foreground has a lot of reds. I'm gonna increase my brush size. Orangish colors, reddish color. It's not all gonna look the way you imagine at first. Sometimes it's good to accept what you get. Sometimes you can fight with it a little bit and try to get more exactly what you want, but right now I just want to get the colors. Okay, so what do we have right now? I'll turn off the original layer, and you see we have a bunch of colors on the screen. I'll turn on the outlines, and we have a bunch of shapes. And this is going to be our starting point for going forward with the painting. So I'm going to close the video here. If you want to, you can go ahead and continue sampling more colors, maybe in the mountains, and dabbing them onto your painting. And we will continue in the next painting, filling out the basic shapes and putting down the base colors. See you!